Hello everyone, this is Randy, your sewing machine man, and we're looking at a Kenmore. And here's one that we're going to thread for you. I promised a couple people I'd show them how to thread these, and I took it for granted that everybody knew how to thread a standard 15 class front load Kenmore 158 series, but I'm not correct in that assumption because you can't always assume that everybody knows what you know. And some folks are getting them without the book, and they want to make sure they're threaded right. I understand that, and I respect that. So let's get it threaded properly. Step one, get the right thread. I'm getting a dual duty, all purpose, and I always say all purpose dual duty. There's lots of different derivatives of this and different kinds of threads that are in this genre, you might say. Any thread that you can take and spin it down like that and it stays, that's almost always going to be the right thread. Now, if you get that and it's a heavy thread, you'll find that it does this. You'll start to spin it and it kind of wants to stay like that. It wants to coil out. This is a 69 bonded nylon. Real heavy. Same color, different diameter. The thread is critical. The threading is critical. The needle is critical. The three things you want to do is thread, threading, and needle. It's almost where all your malfunctions occur. Thread, threading, and needle. We'll start with the thread. Got a good all-purpose dual duty. We'll put it on here. People say, which way should it turn? Should it turn this way or should it turn that way? It doesn't make a whole lot of difference. I've never seen it make a difference. Just get the right spool, get it on there. You get these little pads, put them on there to, be sure that it doesn't scratch up your machine or fly around. Make sure it's the right spool. A cone is for a serger. If you have a thread stand and it feeds up and over, you're good. If it's a cone, it's not going to work on there. A lot of problems are caused by the wrong thread. Okay, you got the right thread. Now, there's always a guide on the front or the back. Sometimes there's one back here. This is not a guide. That's the bobbin winder guide. I see machines all the time with that in there. You can go like that, and it doesn't go there. Oh, I do that all the time. Then I notice that their tension, instead of being on 4, is on 2 because this adds tension. So skip that. That's for the pinch point for winding your bobbin. So what we're going to do is go to the thread guide. That's going to be on the front edge or the back. Sometimes it's one of these, just like this back there. Straight over, straight to here. But if it's here, we'll go to this one. I always hold on to the thread and pull it through my fingers instead of from the spool. So I have the presser foot up. Did I mention that step one? I should have. Step one, always raise the presser foot up. When you raise the presser foot up, it opens the tension disc so the thread will actually go between them. If you thread any machine with the presser foot down, it's misthreaded. But nope, if you don't raise the presser foot up, the lever in the back, if you don't raise the presser foot lever up before you thread, your machine is already misthreaded. Sorry, that's just the way it goes. So there's your first guide. Okay, then from that guide, let's crank it down to the tension assembly itself and get a little closer because people say, I couldn't see what you're doing there. You're too far away. Well, by golly, let's get as close as I can get with this cheapy little setup I have here. Okay, presser foot is up. Notice there's going to be movement here. Watch that. See the movement right there? Open, close, open, close. As the foot comes up, this opens. Critical that it's up. That opens it up. Now, most machines have a little guide over here on the right-hand side. That little ear that sticks up, you can put your thread right up against that. Right up against that. And it guides it right in the slot. Really? Yeah, if you get behind it, disaster. You get up here, disaster. You want to be right on that little ear, slide it right in between the discs. I always hold the thread so it's not pulling off. I'm pulling it from here to my other hand. Bring it in, bring it around, holding it tightly in my right hand, and it goes click behind that little check spring. That check spring has to bounce. Every time you take a stitch, it has to bounce. So it has to be behind it. Let's do that again. Bring it in from the side, click. And that's where you always lower the foot then, and you pull. See, it's set on 4. They're on 4. So you pull there and you go, whoa, that feels like someone has a hold of it and won't let go. That's the way it should feel. If you lower the pressure foot and you pull on this and you don't feel that resistance, like someone has a hold of it and won't let go, then you got your thread in front of the disc or behind the disc, not between the discs. That's the most important thing about threading the machine. 5 calls a day. My machine's making big loops underneath. It's nesting. Well, it's not threaded correctly. Well, I threaded it 20 of those different times. One of them must have been right. No, that's not how it works. Like if you tie your shoe. You tie your shoe once and done, and you're out the door. If you have to do it 100 times, you haven't learned how to tie your shoe. So threading your machine is exactly like tying your shoe. You have to know it like you know your own name. Step 1, raise the foot, go around, get the spring, put it behind the fork, lower it, check it. Okay, that gets us as far as the tension assembly. Now, you can leave the pressure foot down if you want to. You have a guide here. Okay, make sure it doesn't get behind there. So every time you and I pull as I'm going to make sure I haven't goofed something up. Something can wrap around something, and I always pull, always pull. Now, next you have your take-up assembly. This is the thread take-up. Every machine has one. I don't know of any that don't. I always like to give my thread a spin, and I put it through right to left, like so. Press the foot still down so I can feel that resistance. Then you're going to have a thread guide right here, a thread guide there, a thread guide there, and then you're ready to thread the needle. I always put it at its highest point. I always take my thread and make sure there's no tension on the thread. I put slack in the thread so it's not going to be stretched. And I cut it, and I don't touch the end of the thread. I don't touch the end that's going through the needle. You don't want to touch it. You don't want to lick your fingers, do all that stuff. You want to have a nice sharp cut on the end, so it's got a nice angled cut. If you touch the end of it, the strands will spread open. You won't get it through the eye of the needle. It'll drive you crazy. Some days are better than others. Some days we can thread the needle first try. It doesn't happen often enough. Sorry about that, but it does happen on occasion when you get the thread right through. A size 12 is harder to thread than a 14. A 14 is easier to thread than a 12 as you go up the number system. When you get to like a 16, 18, they start getting real easy. Now I'm trying to work around this camera here, so this is going to be kind of bogus. Sometimes you can get yourself an extra light. Go to the Home Depot and grab you one of these. It's always good to have some light. Get that out of the way. If you have some light, and you can see what you're doing, it goes right through. Having some light helps. A lot of the machines have the little white thing back here. That's a cool thing to have. Having the light over it helps. I'd have been closer, it would have been easier, but that's my excuse. So, lift it up. Thread guide at the top. Thread guide here. Around with it up. Click. Click in the side. Behind the fork. Thread guide, thread guide, thread guide. Thread guide down to the needle. Thread it forward, through, straight to back. The flat side of the needle is facing the rear. The long groove, I was able to check, the long groove is always facing forward. Put my thumbnail in that groove and run it the entire length of the needle. That's how I know I got it right. And I'll put my thread under there, turn the hand wheel, pick the thread up. I don't have to put my cover back on, but you get the idea. Put that on there. Get my foot control. Hold these threads always. Hold them so they don't suck down in there and make a mess. Step on the gas and away you go. You think, wow, that's pretty slick. It's Kenmore, 158 series, front load, 15 class. Hard to beat. If you want to get a good durable machine that'll last you for generations, that's one to get. This one has built-in stitches. Knobs up here on the top, and these can look different. I mean, you can get one that has this and has that. 158 is the series, and you get the ones with the dial on top. Click, click, click. You can get to the ones that the flap lifts up and cams go in. All the different dials and levers. But if they look like this platform, they're going to thread exactly like that. There's so many machines out there that thread exactly like this. It's in the millions and millions and millions. So if you know how to thread this, I assumed everybody did. Not so, but if you know how to thread this, you can thread so many machines. I have another video on the lay-in threading, which is a real pain. That's the one that's really tough, so I show people how to do that because it's really hard. This one's easy. You see what you're doing. Tension on 4, Pass your darner about halfway down, and you're ready to go. Appreciate it. Thanks.